Hey everyone, Thomas Joseph here, and today we are tackling flan. Now, is this a dessert that you avoid making at home because of the long laundry list of things that could go wrong? Well, today I'm going to share with you all of the tricks and tips you need for flan success. Let's get started. Before we start the custard, that wonderful rich custard that we love, I'm going to make the caramel for the flan. Now, flan, as opposed to creme brulee, has a wonderful thin layer of caramel that goes in the bottom of our baking pan here, which will inevitably become the top of the flan. So to start this off, I have half a cup of granulated sugar, regular granulated sugar. I'm gonna use a nice wide saucepan here, and to this I'm gonna add a few tablespoons of water. This is 3 tablespoons of water, but basically what we're doing here, guys, is creating what we call a wet caramel. And wet caramels are fantastic. It's actually my preferred way of making caramels in general, whether it's for a flan like this, a caramel sauce, or anything else you might use a caramel for, because it really helps to prevent crystallization from forming. If you're going to make a dry caramel, which is just sugar, no water, what could happen is the sugar starts to melt and to caramelize unevenly, which creates these crystal chains, and ultimately your entire pot will become crystallized and you'll have to start the process over again, or there's actually a way to fix it. So if that happens to you, go on marthastewart.com and check out the video that we have made. A really great, easy way to make caramel and to prevent this crystallization from forming is to actually use the lid of the pot. So in the initial stage of the caramel, while it's a simple sugar syrup like it is now, placing the lid on top is going to encourage steam. Steam is going to collect on the top of the lid, and that condensation, that drip down of liquid, is going to actually brush away any crystals that might form on the perimeter of the pans. Every once in a while, you can remove the lid, make sure that the sugar is melting nice and evenly. Always swirl your pot, never stir it with a spoon or a spatula at the beginning stage here, because what that will do, again, it will form crystals on your utensil, and when you reintroduce it into the caramel, it'll start off that chain reaction. So swirl, lid, and this will take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to create a really wonderful dark caramel. That's what we're looking for, something that's really nice and dark, because that color is gonna give us fantastic flavor in the end. So it's been a few minutes, I'd say about 3, and at this point I'm gonna remove the lid because the caramel is starting to turn colors. So at this point, there's a little bit of amber. I'm gonna swirl the pan so that we get caramelization. It's nice and even, and it smells nice and nutty. You wanna make sure that you're really cooking the caramel to a nice, dark, rich color. All right, guys, so we're almost there. Now, the recipe, we always say, cook the caramel to an amber color. And one of the things, since we're working in a dark pot here, you wanna kinda go a little bit further than you think. This is actually a really great tip when making caramel. You almost want it to be a dark amber, something like a really dark, rich maple syrup color, which we're getting right now. And you're almost gonna smell a little bit of bitterness, and that's really what you want. So this is good. I'm gonna turn the heat off, and I'm gonna pour this immediately into my 9 by 2 inch round baking pan. Now, take the time here and be very careful, but while the caramel is hot, you wanna swirl this around the pan. Try to cover as much of the pan as you possibly can, but this is a thin coating of caramel, so it might not completely cover the pan, but as best you can. And then set this off to the side to cool. Now, be careful, because once you pour the caramel into this pan, it's gonna heat the pan up, so make sure you don't burn your fingers. While our caramel cools, we're gonna start the custard base. Now, I have 4 cups of whole milk here, and I'm gonna put that in a large sauce pot. Now, when you're making a flan, the main difference in terms of the custard that you're making, as opposed to like a creme brulee, is that it's not as rich, and it has a substantial amount of whole eggs or egg white in the custard base, so that you can turn the custard out of the pan and it will hold up nicely. It will have more structure. So kind of lower fat dairy and more eggs, or whole eggs. So 4 cups of whole milk and a half a cup of granulated sugar. I'm gonna turn this on a medium heat. And really what we're doing here, we wanna dissolve some of the sugar that we've added into this pot, and we want to bring this milk up to a temperature of around maybe 160 degrees, 180 degrees. You want to scald the milk. And what this does is it helps to denature the proteins in the milk, and that will give you a really silken texture in the end. The one thing you do not want to do is boil this. That is an important tip there, guys, because if you boil it, you have the risk of actually taking all of those proteins and kind of strangling them in a way, and they become broken, and that will give you a grainy texture. So really we're just gonna heat this up, and then we're gonna temper it into our egg mixture. Now, while this is heating, I'm gonna mix together my eggs. So I have in this bowl 4 eggs. I need 5 whole eggs for this recipe, and I also need 5 egg yolks. To this, I'm going to add a little bit more sugar, so another half cup of sugar. So in total, you guys, we're using a cup of sugar in the custard mixture itself. I'm gonna whisk this together. And a pinch of salt. It's really important whenever you're baking to add a little bit of salt, and it helps to bring out all of the wonderful flavors. Now, today I'm gonna be using vanilla in my custard, and I'll add that in a little bit, but if you wanted to make a flan, maybe a coffee flan or some other flavored flan, maybe you wanted to infuse some spice into this, you could certainly do that, and the best way I think to do it is to infuse it in your milk mixture here at this point. My milk is heating up, my eggs are whisked together, and once this comes to temperature, we'll begin the tempering process. So now we're gonna start the tempering process, and tempering is very simple. Don't get intimidated by this process, guys. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take a little bit of the hot liquid, the hot mixture that we have here, and you're gonna gently stream it into your eggs. Now you don't wanna do this in the opposite way, otherwise you're gonna end up with scrambled eggs. So add the hot ingredients into your eggs while you're whisking constantly. And this will bring all of the eggs up to temperature without scrambling them. All right, so this looks good. And at this point, once you have a good portion of the milk mixture included in the eggs, you can stream in the rest. All right, so that was super simple. That's your custard base. Now I'm gonna add, as I said before, a little bit of vanilla, and that's my flavoring. So anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 to even a teaspoon of vanilla extract is really great here. So whisk this together. And now we're ready to fill our caramel lined baking dish. The custard is ready. And now I'm gonna pour this right into my lined cake pan here. Now, if you wanted to, you could certainly strain your custard mixture. It will fish out any little bits of egg white maybe that haven't been dissolved in your custard, but I think this is totally fine. And I'm gonna pour it right in. And make sure your oven is preheated to 325 degrees with the rack in the center of the oven. And what you want to do is you want to fill a roasting pan with about 2 inches of water and leave that in there for about 30 minutes so it heats up. And we're gonna cook this flan in a gentle water bath. And what that does is it helps the temperature of the custard to kind of increase so that the mixture will set, but it does it over a long period of time. Now this flan will take anywhere from 50 minutes to 60 minutes, maybe even a little bit longer, until there's a slight jiggle in the center. All right, now the flan has been in the oven for 50 minutes, and I wanted to show you this, guys. This is when you know to pull the flan out of the oven, when there's a slight jiggle in the very center of the custard. That's when you know it's done. Don't be worried that it's not set, because custards, as they cool, will start to firm up. So at this point, I'm gonna remove the flan from the water bath. and I'm going to cool this on a wire rack until it is completely room temperature. And then after it reaches room temperature, we're going to put it into the refrigerator until it's nice and cold and firm, and then we'll be ready to serve it. So it's a really great idea to make this a day in advance. If you're having a dinner party, do this the night before, and then it will be just perfect the night of. So we have a nice chilled flan here. And the trick to getting it out of the pan is that you have to loosen it from the edge. So I like to use a flexible knife, something that bends easily. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the knife and you're gonna glide it around the outside of the flan. You want to apply a generous amount of pressure against the side of the pan so that you don't get any unsightly marks. And you can already see, I don't know if you guys saw that, but this flan is gonna come out nicely. It's actually spinning in the pan, and that's great. Now, I'm using a cake stand today. You wanna make sure that you're using a dish that's, I'd say, about an inch or two wider than the cake pan that we're using today, and also something that has a lip, because this has a lot of caramel, right? And the caramel's gonna come down the side, so be sure to have something that does have a lip to it. So, here we go. We're gonna flip the cake stand over on top of the cake pan, and then you're gonna pick both of them up and give it a flip, but be quick. And you should be able to hear it, and I see some caramel, so I feel like we have some success here. There might be a little bit of suction. So there you go, it looks absolutely amazing. Now, I want to show you what this looks like on the inside, so I'm gonna cut a beautiful wedge. Now, this recipe is one of my favorites because it's firm, but the flan itself has a nice texture to it, a nice silken texture. So I'm gonna just maneuver this to my plate. Look at that. How beautiful, silky. Now, this is really fantastic, you guys, and I would encourage you to make this at home for your next special occasion. And as always, if you have any kitchen conundrums, whether they're baking or cooking, reach out to us using the hashtag Kitchen Conundrums. We love to hear from you. Oh my God, this is so delicious. I could eat the whole thing. Amazing.